Countdown. Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com. We are here with the MMA Vivisection for what Dana White has called definitely the worst season of The Ultimate Fighter in the series history. So you can only imagine how excited I am. I stopped watching The Ultimate Fighter, I don't know, some point in the last 6 or 7 seasons. I've checked back in and on and off. But I'm joined by Zane Simon, who knows all about the prelims non-Ultimate Fighter related, although he has watched the Ultimate Fighter fights, and Fraser Coffeen from the Bloody Elbow staff, our kickboxing and boxing specialist, who, for whatever reason, is the guy who's actually watching the Ultimate Fighter this season from the staff. So Fraser, welcome to the show. It's your debut, and you're having some technical glitches. And can you hear me and see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, talk. Fraser? There's like a ferocious lag. I don't know if anybody's ever webcam with anyone from the Ukraine, but...
I can't see you, but I hear you. Oh, there you are. Now you've shown up. Yes, I can hear you. Hello, how's it going?
It's going very well. Now tell us, did you enjoy this 19th season of The Ultimate Fighter?
Not in the Ukraine, I swear. I'm in Chicago.
Yeah, there's like it's just like a 5-minute lag on it. This, I can guarantee you, this is going to be
Did I enjoy The Ultimate
Fighter?
It was rough. It was a rough season.
This is gonna be awesome. So what made it so rough? And I guess we'll just talk while the
There's a long lag. That's unfortunate. Why is that happening?
Oh man.
Oh, this is gonna be so rough.
All right, I'm ready to talk. I can talk about what made it.
Oh, hey,
I'm ready.
Hey, it looks like I think he's back. I think he's back in time.
Are you in real time, Fraser, or are you still moments behind?
All right.
Talk.
I just heard what you just said right there. I mean, you asked me if I'm in real time. I feel good. You hearing me? I'm talking right this second. Are you hearing me talk?
You're like a minute off, but I think you're good.
A little bit.
Yeah, just talk about the season. Talk about
Tell
the season
why
of The
you
Ultimate
watched
Fighter.
this.
Why did you watch it?
I'm prepared. I'm gonna talk about it. You know, here's the thing. Absolutely, a good question. I mean, here's the thing. I'm one of those people that came back into the UFC thanks to The Ultimate Fighter. I watched it like in the early days with Hoist Gracie and all that kind of stuff, and then I kind of faded out a little bit. And it was the Forrest. I'm one of those famous like Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner fans who like I watched that fight and I watched that season and it got me back hooked. So The Ultimate Fighter's always had kind of a special place in my heart. I'm always also, you know, a little bit of a reality show TV junkie. I watch Survivor and things like that, so I'm cool with the reality TV format. I'm fine with it. I'm content. So I've stuck with it. I missed some seasons here and there. I did not watch like Brock and Dos Santos and a couple others around there, but you know, for the most part, I'm in. This season, Dana White said it was I think he said it was flat out the worst one ever. You know, who am I to argue with him? It was not good. It had a lot of problems. It was long fights, slow, boring wrestling, long fights. And the problem with that, when you have a season of Ultimate Fighter filled with long fights, is that it means that A, the fights suck. B, it means that you can't really focus on anything else. Because a 3-round fight, when you add in all the commercials and all that kind of stuff, it takes out about half the program. So you don't even have time to like dualities. So like Eddie Gordon's in the finals. I don't really have much of a sense of who Eddie Gordon is, and yeah, that's a problem because that's really what obviously the whole point of the show is. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough season. I still think that there are some things that I'm excited about with the 3 Ultimate Fighter fights that are showing up on the finale. There's things I'm excited about, so you know we'll get to that down the road. But it was bad season, good final episode. Maybe it bodes well.
So who out of that are you picking to win? What I'm thinking we'll do with your lag is let you talk about the Ultimate Fighter fights, and then we'll kill you, and Zane and I will talk about the rest of the card. So you go ahead and talk about the Ultimate Fighter fights. What do you think of that plan, Zane? Is that a good plan?
Oh, I don't know. He seems to be lagging less.
Is he how? There's look at the leg. He just heard what I'm saying.
I think it's a cheap plan, aside from the fact that you referred to it as killing me, but I'll get to that and deal with it.
Excellent.
Okay.
So tell us
No,
how
I let
Edgar-
Jane talk. I let Jane talk to me. All right, I'm talking. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. So the three tough fights. Absolutely, the three tough fights. Number one, Daniel Spawn versus Patrick Walsh. That's on the prelims. Those are the two guys who lost in the semifinals on the light heavyweight side. So you got Patrick Walsh, who lost to Corey Anderson, Daniel Spawn, who lost to Matt Van Buren. This fight, I don't know. It might be kind of entertaining and fun. Patrick Walsh is a pretty good wrestler. He's got some good wrestling skills. He is a horrid stand-up fighter. He's kind of like the absolute worst of Chris Leben, you know, where he drops his hands, he walks forward, he just lets you punch him in the face about 19 times, and he just eats it. And that's his defense. I'm going to just absorb these punches. His fight with Corey Anderson was ridiculous. By about the end of the second round, Walsh's hands were just hanging at his waist, but he's just getting punched, and it just kind of kept him forth, which I guess is kind of fun, but not really full of skill. Very good wrestler though. Daniel Spawn, more well-rounded all around, had a really good knockout to get into the house. Great knockout. Dana White said it was better than Uriah Hall's knockout 2 seasons ago. He's wrong, but it was good. Then he had a total awful stinker of a fight that was really boring, and then he had a really good fight against Matt Van Buren that Spawn lost. So I think Spawn is the more well-rounded fighter. I think probably he takes this just simply by nature of being just plain old better. Walsh might be able to out-wrestle him if he wants to. He might be able to just kind of hang in there with his granite chin, but I think probably Spawn, ends the Walsh thing pretty quickly here. Maybe even knocks him out, and that's probably going to be the end of Walsh in the UFC. And Spawn will kind of stick around for a little while. He might linger around if he decides to stay at light heavyweight, they certainly could use all the warm bodies they can have at light heavyweight. So it might allow him to kind of linger around that division for a while. That's that one.
Cool.
Number two, middleweight final. And I'll say one kind of fun aspect of the finale that's an interesting little storyline. So there are... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Please, go ahead.
You keep talking. My mistake. You keep talking. This time machine thing is very difficult. It's like Sherman and Peabody trying to do a webcast.
I'm going. Alrighty. It's amazing. It's good. It's we're figuring out these kinds of things and the time lag and all that kind of stuff. It's fine. It's enjoyable. It's a good weird commentary on things. All right, I'm going to keep talking. Here we go. An aspect that's interesting about the finals that I think is kind of weird is that it is 4 Team Edgar fighters. Team Penn completely wiped out. None of their fights made it to the finale. I don't know. Is that a comment on BJ Penn's coaching style? I'm not sure. But I will say one of the highlights of the show was a point where one of BJ Penn's fighters lost. He was favored to win, and then he lost. And BJ Penn the next day gave his team a speech where he said, "Hey guys, the reason that he lost is because he gassed out because we trained too hard, so we probably shouldn't train anymore for today." Which I think anybody who's followed BJ Penn's entire career can appreciate sort of the ridiculous irony of that. So anyway, 4 Frankie Edgar fighters in the final. On the middleweight side, you got Diego Lima, brother of Bellator welterweight champion Douglas Lima, versus Eddie Gordon, a Sarah Longo trainee who's pals with Chris Weidman. Gordon, I mentioned him at the top. Gordon, I don't really have much of a sense of anything about Eddie Gordon, I gotta tell you. And I watched the whole season. He's a bit of a hothead, like I say. he's a physical guy. He sort of outworked and out physicaled Cahal Pendred to get into the finals. I thought Pendred was going to beat him, but Gordon had better boxing and kind of just outworked him to get there. Lima, not as good a striker as his brother, but a good solid technical fighter in most areas of the game. Really good submission. There were only count them, three finishes on the entire season of TUF, and two of them were submission finishes done by Diego Lima. To get into the finals, he had like a 30-second fight where he caught Roger Zapata caught his kick. Zapata took him down. Lima just snatched the armbar, submitted him, and that was that. So he's the kind of fighter who can, if you make a mistake, he'll submit you. He's not great at getting off his back, or getting out of bad situations, but at the same time, if you're in that bad situation, he can tap you out. I see Lima taking a submission win there with relatively little trouble, though Gordon might be able to kind of grind his way to a win. Last one, because I know everybody is thrilled to hear about non-stop talk about season 19 of TUF, because there's enough of it. So last one, light heavyweight final, Corey Anderson versus Matt Van Buren. I mentioned before Corey Anderson's fight to get into the finals, where he beat Pat Walsh in a really kind of ugly affair. I watched that with a friend, and the two of us were saying what I think every single human being that was watching was saying, which is throw a head kick for Corey Anderson, as Walsh is kind of leaned down with his hands down, and when all you want to see is Corey Anderson kick him in the head and end the fight. He doesn't. It just goes on for 3 rounds of Corey Anderson just beating him up. He's very raw. He's been in the sport for less than 2 years. I'm a little unclear on his record. Some places where it is 2-0, some 3-0, some 4-0, but he doesn't have a lot of fights. He's a wrestler. He was a collegiate training buddy of Ben Askren, and Ben Askren's who got him into MMA. So he's got really good wrestling. For a guy with, at max, 4 fights, he's a pretty good striker. He has a lot of technical flaws, sure, and he doesn't know how to throw a kick apparently. But he's a pretty decent boxer, and he outboxed Walsh, and he was good. I think that by a landslide, Corey Anderson is the fighter with the highest potential on this show. There's just something about his mentality and his attitude that makes you say that guy is an MMA fighter. So I think regardless of he's pretty young, he's pretty raw, he doesn't have a ton of experience, but I think of everybody in this cast, he's the guy that a couple years from now we're still going to see. I'm not saying he's like necessarily a world champion, but I think he'll be around for a little while. Then his opponent is Matt Van Buren, who was a little bit sort of the Chris Lieben villain heel of the show, but his nickname was Gutter. Luckily, he didn't get a ton of screen time to do his sort of Lieben stuff. He had a disastrously awful fight, which I think is about the 4th time I've said that so far. In the quarterfinals, and then his semifinal where he just laid on his opponent. It was terrible. And then his semifinal was a really good fight where he bloodied up Daniel Spawn. He's a fine regional level guy. He does most things well and nothing all that well. It's possible that he's just kind of well-rounded enough that he can beat Corey Anderson at this stage of Corey Anderson's career. But I got faith in Corey Anderson, and I think Anderson will take him out probably by decision, but we'll see. So that's my pick. Corey Anderson, light heavyweight champion of TUF. Diego Lima, middleweight champion, and Daniel Spawn, I guess you call him the bronze medalist at light heavyweight.
Excellent. And so, thank you, Fraser.
Now I will wait for to hear what you have to say.
Yes, I know how difficult that can be. And so I think we're going to let Fraser stick around just for the fuck of it, because this is going to be entertaining. Time machine fiasco. So Fraser, just talk when you feel like talking, and we'll make fun of you because we've got a 2-minute lead to respond to anything you say. So Zane, Simon, and I will walk through the card. I've done no preparation for this shit because I've got a lot of shit going on.
Because that's your MO, and you've got a proud history to keep up.
Exactly, and there's just too much of this crap to even bother with. But I
Fantastic.
am intrigued by a few of these fights, and Zane has done research. First up, light heavyweight Robert Drysdale. For those of you who don't know, Robert Drysdale is a legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend, I would say. He's not Roger Gracie, but he is up there. He's a Demian Maia level jiu-jitsu artist. Whether or not that translates into UFC success, anybody's guess. His grappling style is fascinating. A lot of body choking that sets up submissions in a unique way. He's also had some health problems. He was supposed to be an Ultimate Fighter way back. I can't remember how many years ago. It was when I was in Virginia, and it was in 2008, I believe he was supposed to be on the Ultimate Fighter. So 6 years later, he's not on the show, but he is on the Ultimate Fighter finale. He has been buried at the bottom of the Fight Pass card. Presumably, this has something to do with his recent drug test failure and suspension. And he's fighting somebody named Keith Barish. Zane, tell us about this fight.
Well, unfortunately, the UFC can't get real light heavyweights anymore. And this is kind of where we are. Drysdale is honestly one of the brighter light heavyweight prospects as a 33-year-old with 6 professional fights to his name. That's where Robert Drysdale, that's the state of the light heavyweight division.
And he's not a big guy for light heavyweight.
Yeah, I think he's legit light heavyweight. So he's 6'3". He's not tiny.
But he's not
No, he's not a Hulk. He's not, he's not a guy who could legitimately have fought at heavyweight and is cutting to light heavyweight.
Yeah.
He's somebody who could probably fight at middleweight, but doesn't want to run sprints, And unfortunately, because of where we are, he's fighting a regional middleweight in Keith Barish. And Barish is actually not a bad fighter. He's a pretty good, decent, top control, ground and pound, grappler, wrestler kind of guy. Wrestler, grappler. But he's fighting a much better grappler. And so the fact that, he's almost certainly at some point going to try to get this fight to the ground bodes poorly for him.
Which, unless you're Tim Kennedy against Roger Gracie, that is generally a bad idea to try to go to the ground with the jiu-jitsu expert. And the odds makers, so you're picking Drysdale, right?
I'm picking Drysdale, except that I think there's a very good chance if this fight goes past if it gets past the first round, then it's a toss-up.
Because we haven't seen
what
Drysdale into the deep waters, and we haven't seen him in a striking match, and he's pretty much taken down and submitted everybody he's faced at the regional level. So, but the odds makers, so actually, man, this could be a chance to make some big money because you've got odds anywhere from -800 all the way up to -1200 on the 3 sites. I'm reading bestfightodds.com. They aggregate various sports books. Only 3 sports books are taking bets on this fight. Barish is an underdog anywhere +485 to +700. I disapprove of gambling on both moral and actuarial levels, but I can't resist a sucker bet like this. I'm throwing the whole life savings on this baby because just do the math on how big you would win if it goes in the 3rd round, like St. Simon said. Anyway, we'll toddle along to the second Fight Pass prelim. Women's bantamweight Sarah Moras versus Alex Dufresne.
Well, Dufresne's, she's actually a pretty good talent. For a division that I often compare women's bantamweight to men's light heavyweight, in that it's more marquee than it is deep, Dufresne rather, getting all with the light heavyweights, Dufresne is actually a good bantamweight fighter. She's and nicely for her too. She's somebody who has actually had trouble in the past making weight and getting down to 135. So that's actually, to me, that's a good sign because a lot of women they've had to pull women from 125 coming up, and I'd much rather see fighters who are having to cut weight to make 135 fighting in that division. And she has just blasted through her competition on the regional scene, and Sarah Moras has not shown anything at all to impress me in any way whatsoever thus far in her career, so I expect this to be a pretty good win for Dufresne.
That is a brutal assessment, and the odds makers like Dufresne as well. They're not enormously. They've got her favorite anywhere from -190 to -220. Moraes is the underdog, plus 150 up to plus 177. That brings us to the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card, which is going to be 4 fights. And again, this is taking place Sunday night after the Saturday night pay-per-view. I'm trying to chat with Fraser Coffin because I thought maybe the chat would go as fast as would go faster than the audio video, but there's a lag on the chat too, so that won't work. This is how crafty I am. Anyway, so I'm always working to bring you the best show possible, guys. And so, and Fraser's analysis I thought was spot on despite the technical difficulties, so nobody can blame me for this shit. Fraser's trying to claim there's no lag. I'm just a slow typer. I'm sorry. I've had this conversation with a number back in the day when I was single with a number of young ladies back before broadband and back in the AOL chat days. And it's like sometimes there's just a lag and nobody can figure out what's happening. So I don't know, Fraser. If you want to hang out and listen to this, hang out and listen to us. I don't know how I can call on you, so feel free to interject at random intervals if you have something to say, and we'll roll with the punches. Anyway, so in 2 minutes he'll hear that, and he might say something. But that brings us to the 4-fight prelim card.
I'm ready.
Light heavyweights Patrick Walsh and Dan Spahn. So Zane, tell us about this fight. Who are these people, and what are they doing on Fox Sports 1?
So yeah, I mean Fraser broke this down pretty well.
That's the fight I already told you about. What are you talking about? I've given you the rundown.
That was pretty fast, but I want to hear Zane's opinion because he watched some footage on this.
Yeah, I watched it too. Give me a break here. Come on. Just because I don't have lag doesn't mean that I...
And just because I already forgot who they were in the 10 minutes or whatever since you told us about that, that doesn't reflect anything on Zane's knowledge of the fights. It just reflects that I'm not even capable of paying attention to what's happening right now. So go ahead, Zane.
All right. So, I mean, Fraser gave a pretty good rundown of this fight. Walsh, from what I've seen, is just, he's a wrestler. He's going to come in. He's going to look to grind away. And Spahn, has shown some flashes of talent. He has, he took Attila Vey to a split decision back in Bellator,
and that's a former Bellator light heavyweight champ right there.
Yeah, which, is at least
one of the most storied titles in sports.
That's it's light heavyweight. I mean, that puts him at like top 20 in the world. As sad as that may be.
Fraser's just now laughing about the jokes I made like 5 minutes ago. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, so.
This is the kind of seasoning that makes you a broadcast professional, kids. That's what I'm telling you. Write it out and keep talking.
And so Walsh, so Spahn's shown some good offensive wrestling, some mediocre defensive wrestling. He's got a karate background that he likes to pull out at sometimes. He hits hard, especially in one-off strikes. He gets hit hard. I'd still pick him over Walsh because he's a little more well-rounded, and I think he can defend the takedown from a single-dimensional fighter like Walsh for long enough to make something happen. So
crack him with a fancy karate strike. Yeah. So the odds makers agree with both of our panelists. They've got Daniel Spahn favored anywhere from minus 189 to minus 240. Walsh is the underdog, plus 155 to plus 195, and that brings us to a non-Ultimate Fighter fight. Adriano Martins versus Juan Manuel Puig Carrion. Now, who the fuck are these people?
Well, you should at least kind of know who Adriano Martins is because he fought Donald Cerrone not long ago and got totally head kicked to death.
I do remember that fight, and that was not even his. That dude's had one Strikeforce fight, and then he submitted Darren Cruikshank, the Detroit superstar, who's a fighter. So yes, I remember Adriano Martins.
Yeah, former Jungle Fight champ, pretty good fighter, honestly. Solid boxer, great jiu-jitsu fighter. Big lightweight.
Hey, I'm ready to throw this out there about Martins. You ready for this? You're totally going to talk over me, but that's okay. Martins is the only fighter on the entire prelim card with a win in the UFC. Martins is the only fighter on the entire prelim card with a win in the UFC. Just throwing that out there.
That is an excellent point, and we can do something with this because we can stop talking when you're talking. You
Yeah.
can't stop talking when we're talking, so keep doing that. That will work. Okay, Zane, and that's an excellent and interesting observation. So well
brilliant.
done, Frederick Huffing. He's special. He's helping us out, and we're razzing him because he's on a time lag. I can say whatever I want, and he's got like 2 minutes before he even hears it. So
Nate's finally happy to have somebody who contributes slightly less than he does on the show.
exactly. All right. So
All right. So
now tell us.
Martins is actually a pretty exceptional lightweight, and getting thrown at Donald Cerrone and losing that fight's no real bad sign for him. I mean, it just means he wasn't prepared for a top 10 opponent at this stage in his career. He may never be, but he's a good
He's not going to be getting dramatically better.
No, but he's an upper half of the division lightweight, I would say. I mean, when you got 100 guys, he's in the top 50. And Puig, I feel bad for him because he's actually a pretty good wrestle grinder. He's a pretty good fighter off the Mexican circuit that the UFC's trying to expand into, but they're immediately throwing him at somebody who's just going to beat the piss out of him, and it's going to be bad. I mean, Martins is bigger, he's a better grappler, he's a better boxer, he's just a better fighter in every area.
Ouch. So you're picking Martins. That's
yeah.
Martins,
whatever.
All right. You're picking that dude. So the odds makers have Martins favored anywhere from -382 to -425. Juan Manuel Puig is the underdog, +280 up to +315, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, and that brings us to the next fight, light bantamweights. Jumbalaki, and the reason I'm staggering is because I've been reading this guy's name. Fraser is probably going to be caught up by the time I even attempt a pronunciation of this dude's name. Jumabaki Terjun versus Leandro Iza, bantamweights. Is this one of the fabled Chinese talent infusions? Where's this guy from? What is the story here?
Yeah, Jumabieke or Jumbiki is he was supposed to be a big one of the few fighters they thought they could pick up who could really compete potentially.
From China.
From China, he wasn't on the show. He didn't come out of the TUF China. He was doing really well in the regional scene. They tried to sign him. He was under contract to another promotion. Stuck him back on the regional scene for another 6 months. Won a couple more fights, and then finally made it to the UFC and got beat up by Markadiva. And Leandro Issa is another. He's Brazilian, but he's he's sort of part of their East Asian expansion of talent. He trains over there, fights out of there. That's I think he's an instructor at one of the gyms, maybe. I can't
remember.
Where
in Thailand, or he's in Macau, or any idea where he's based out of?
He fights out of Evolve MMA, and I can't remember where Evolve is.
The name is vaguely familiar. Our own
Singapore.
Singapore. Okay, so he's out of Singapore.
It works. I'm a genius. I can make this happen. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So and
is Terjun Mongolian? Do you have any idea?
Torsion, I don't know. He might be.
My guess is because he doesn't look especially young.
I think he's like Kazakh or something along those lines.
Yeah, one of the border states.
Yeah, so he's not ethnically Chinese, Han Chinese, and so the fight itself.
The fight itself, Issa kind of had a bad showing his first time out, in which he got schooled by a very aggressive Russell Doan, who's much better in scrambles than advertised.
And who's now on the UFC 175 pay-per-view card, so the guy's obviously a red-hot talent to break through the
He's a good fighter. I mean,
it does seem like he's. I'm joking. He is a good fighter. He shouldn't be on a pay-per-view card after one fight on Fight Pass.
That's neither here nor there.
It's promotional malpractice, which is a phrase I taught Luke Thomas. Okay, Luke Thomas says it's his trademark. I hired him, gave him his first job in MMA, and taught him that phrase. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh, telling tales out of class, Nate.
I just don't want to let that one go. That's his tagline.
Yeah, but I I expect Issa to bounce back and win what is probably a slightly tougher than advertised fight. I think he'll probably be a bit more polished than Tuarshin, who's also going to have a lot of pressure to compete, but I just don't see Tuarshin having any of the raw skills. I think he tends to come in as more of a pure wrestler with some mediocre striking, and I'm not sure his wrestling game's all that good, and I think Issa's going to be just a bit more well-rounded.
And so you're picking Issa. And the
Yep.
odds makers are not. They've got the Wild Wolf favored. So if you listen to the man I call affectionately and with respect, all due respect,
All
that
due
fucking
respect.
idiot, Zane Simon, then you're going to be wanting to bet on this one because the Wild
it's
Wolf Tershun is the favorite, minus 130 up to minus 150. Issa is the underdog at plus 100 up to plus 116. Fraser logged out and logged back in to see if the lag has helped. Did the lag help? Can you hear us in real time?
I can hear you right now. Is that actually like the time
Yeah.
that you can?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at
Miracle
that.
of that is what you call tech support. Kid Nate gave him some messaging like, why don't you try logging in and logging out again? Actually, I'm lying. He suggested that. So anyway, that's the difference between me and Chelson, and I'll say the lie, but then I'll own it. Because it's good fun to make ridiculous claims in numerous ways. But anyway, so Fraser, do you have any thoughts on the Wild Wolf versus Leandro Issa?
No, I think Zane summed it up. I missed a little bit as I was logging out, but I think Zane hit it. I'm agreed. I missed his final prediction, but Issa seems like the clear choice here.
You picked Issa. All right. And so how about Drysdale-Barrett? Do you have a pick in that fight?
Yeah, Drysdale. I mean, you're pairing him up against another guy whose best bet to win a fight is to take it to the ground, and he's fighting Robert Drysdale. He's screwed.
I see. But what if he's a better striker and he can somehow survive on the ground with Robert Drysdale until Drysdale gasses and then... Because there's a minus 1,200 odds on Drysdale, so I'm like...
Yeah,
I heard about a guy who bet...
so long on Drysdale there that I would be willing to put a bet on Barish by decision.
Yeah.
Now
here's an interesting thing I was thinking about with the Drysdale fight too, is that his last fight got canceled because he opted his TE ratio was a lot of work. So this week there was that statement that Metamoris 4 and Halleck Gracie put out where they basically said like PEDs, nah, we don't really care about it in the grappling world. So
not the drugs.
are we going to get in this Yes, exactly. So are we going to get here a clean Robert Drysdale for the first time in his career, maybe? In which case, what's gonna happen? I think it's something.
Yeah, I mean, I just worry about his gas tank, and if he's fighting somebody who's just skilled enough to survive with him until he can't be functionally aggressive as a grappler, then it could just come down to the fact that Barish actually has done some Muay Thai, and he seems like he could be minorly competent on the feet. But I mean, I would still say Drysdale's a safer pick, but at those odds that it's at, I mean, the odds are pretty ridiculous for a guy with 6 pro fights.
This is the thing where idiots like me get into gambling because you start doing numbers like I could bet $200, and then you think 200 times minus 1,200, and wow, we're talking like a big number. I can't even do the math on that, but
We're talking math.
Exactly. You start, and that's how you lose money gambling on MMA. All right, Fraser. Dufresne versus Sarah Moraes. Alexis Dufresne versus Sarah Moraes. Do you have a pick?
I hear a lot of good stuff about Dufresne. I've not been able to see too many of her fights. I couldn't track down a whole bunch of them online. She beat Kim Couture. But I like Moraes more. I think she's a sort of deceptively tough fighter. I think she'll deal with kind of an early onslaught by Alexis, and then she'll be able to submit her.
And so that's our whole panel going against the odds and picking Moraes, right? Is that right,
No,
James?
I picked Dufresne. I think
Dufresne.
she's going to smash her.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what I know what I was doing, that I burned my short-term memory, but boy, is that amazing. I can't even remember what happened earlier in the show. I really am becoming the guy, Fred Willard from the dog show. Now I can't even remember the name of that, but that is my model as a host, sportscaster, is Fred Willard in Best in Show. All right, and so on the Adriano Martins, Juan Manuel Puig fight, who are you picking, Fraser?
Martins, just he's got huge experience edge. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one.
And like you pointed out before on Through the Time Machine, he's the only guy in the preliminary card with a win on the UFC. Fox has to be thrilled to get that lineup from the UFC. Like, what do you got for us, guys? And then that's what they got for us. All right, and so we already went to and so now we're to the last fight of the prelims. Lightweights Kevin Lee and Jesse Ronson. Fraser, I'll let you talk about this one first, just because we haven't gotten to do that yet.
Oh no, let Dane talk about this one first. This is one that I have to admit. No.
We're on to the copy your work trick, dude. This isn't our first show. We work with Dallas Winston, the alleged king of the let me copy the other guy's work. Actually, I'm of course the alleged king of the copy the other guy's work. But
don't let anybody dethrone you there, Nate. Come on, take some credit, take some pride.
When we started these shows, I was like up on it enough to sort of hang with Dallas with a minimum of copying his work during the show and a maximum of pre-show cramming the same day. At this point, whatever. Anyway,
the wheels are off.
Yes, the wheels are off.
Listen, I watched 12 episodes of TUF Season 19. I feel like it's okay to say that maybe I didn't thoroughly study these two, and I've
that is an accomplishment. I think everyone can applaud. This guy is a motherfucking fan.
That's some heart and guts right there.
Yeah,
well, that's off to you.
Yeah, so Zane, you can tell us.
We don't want to see that.
Longtime fans of the show, of course, have seen that before, and it wasn't a pretty sight. So, Kevin Lee and Jesse Ronson, Zane Simon, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I hope Kevin Lee wins this, is what I want to say about it, because Jesse Ronson is a decent fighter, but I haven't seen anything about him that shows he's improving. Like, he's basically a tough striker without any power. He's tough, he's durable, he stays in fights, he pecks away at people, and he can kind of steal rounds with a grinding stand-up style.
He's got 2 UFC fights and 2 split decision losses. This says this guy has excitement written all over him, and
Lee certainly has a lot of raw athletic tools. Almost almost snuck out something against Ali Aquinta, who is very mercurial in his talents. But Lee also has this really funky adopted boxing style he likes to use, where it sort of looks like he's tried this modified crab style for MMA that does not work at all.
Like he got a hold of a George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali video and decided.
No, like he got a hold, like he has a coach that has watched a bunch of Floyd Mayweather fights and said, I can make that work.
And the King Mo style.
Yeah, the King Mo style. Yeah. And he's got some he's got great raw tools, and he's got some good wrestling too to go with it. But he needs to basically, it's almost like he needs to go to a better camp and have somebody just tear him down and build him back up from the ground up. And I don't know if that's something that's happening at all right now for him. And if not, Jesse Ronson's exactly the kind of durable point fighter that can get out in front of him, stay out in front of him, and Lee's exactly the kind of talent that could snatch a win out of nothing. So I would probably say I'd pick Ronson as the safe bet, but I'd really like to see Lee win it.
Yeah, but Lee it's not like he's going to knock him out. This is a guy with 8 fights, no knockouts. So, I mean, he could knock him out. These things happen in MMA, but it's not like this guy's a powerhouse waiting to explode. All right, that brings up.
Wait. Lee's not going to knock him out, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that.
Well, I don't know. That it's maybe whatever. If that's your commentary, fine. I won't. Slow you down.
I'm looking at Sherdog. The guy has 0 knockouts.
I know, but he's also like he basically started with the wrestling base and has been developing his striking. He's big. He's strong. If he could get decent striking out of this funky technique, he could have some power.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And the odds makers, Fraser, you want to throw in a pick here? You're lagging again.
I picked Ronson as well, and I didn't do it just because Zane said it. No, I'm not. You lie. I'm not.
You're totally lagging again. You might have to log in and out again. something's funky, but
All
it's
right,
not something.
I'm going out and I'm coming back.
All right, that sounds fun. Let's just keep this cluster fight going, Zane. Like
Yeah.
just roll with it. So the odds makers, they've got Kevin Lee favored anywhere from -208 up to -250. Jesse Ronson's the underdog, +165 to +200, and that brings us to flyweights. Dustin Ortiz versus Justin Scoggins. This fight, I'm like, why is this fight not on UFC 175? Because this one actually has a little bit of steam. Maybe I'm a mutant, but I'm sort of intrigued. It is on the main card of
Yep.
the event, although that's a fairly artificial distinction because it's going to be like just this 4 or 5 hour marathon on Fox Sports 1 that nobody's really going to notice the change.
But you'll notice when in the middle of the card they do a break and then they tell you, "Welcome to UFC on Fox Sports 1," and like they do the big intro like it's a big like thing that you haven't been watching for the past 2 hours.
Yes,
You'll notice that.
I will notice that, but I think people are high on Justin Scoggins.
Yes.
He came in, he's 2-0 in the UFC. Both of those fights were quite impressive. I thought in the second fight he wasn't. I was a little disappointed with him in a Campuzano fight. And then Dustin Ortiz also caught my attention right away. And although he does have the loss to John Morales. Oh, my God. That was a... Jimi Hendrix has appeared. Do we have a time lag?
I don't think so. What do you think?
Maybe a little bit. We can deal with it, but
we're good.
We can deal with it.
Okay, all right.
But we're not going to try the Jimi Hendrix thing experience again. But so anyway, Ortiz had the setback against John Moraga, but no shame in that. Moraga's a top tier flyweight, and then
and Ortiz won that fight. I mean,
well, except where it counts
except where it counts. But I mean, like it was a close enough fight that I would be comfortable saying that I thought Ortiz won it.
So fair enough. So this is a guy, who's got a TKO win and then a split decision loss and a split decision win against the hot young kid Justin Scoggins. Do you think Scoggins is everything he's cracked up to be?
Very likely, yeah. And this is starting out as somebody who pretty seriously doubted whether or not he could be coming in. And because his regional record, while very flashy and had a lot of he had a lot of finishes, was very successful, very low on talent. He did not fight anybody coming up. Really can-filled, no opponents of note. And so he has this funky striking style. He comes from a very traditional martial arts background, regional kickboxing champ. But the thing is that he's immediately established himself as a very good, very strong wrestler and competent grappler in the UFC against, and against Campuzano, who's not great competition, but is certainly the kind of guy that you need to show that against. You can't just show nothing. I mean, let me put it this way: he did a lot better against Campuzano than Pettis did.
And Pettis was the guy who had, if you want to talk about hype, Sergio Pettis, younger brother of the lightweight. Anthony Pettis had an enormous amount of hype coming in, and has consistently been disappointing. He's what our colleague Eugene S. Robinson would call a gikta in my book, a guy I can't trust anymore. But Scoggins also has a fascinating striking style. Fraser, you have any comments on Scoggins' striking style?
No, I mean, I'm interested to see how he does here as well. He does have that great hype coming in as well. It's tough for me. I think Ortiz overall. I think Ortiz is a great test for that hype coming in. I do love the striking of Scoggins. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's unique. But I don't know. I'm not as on the bandwagon as it sounds like Zane is just yet. I think Ortiz is a really tough first out for him. I lean towards Ortiz because of that, but obviously the striking fan of me, I'm intrigued by what Scoggins does and would love to see him do well. I just think he's got a tough spot here.
Well, don't mistake me for thinking that Ortiz doesn't have a chance, and I think that I think Scoggins is a legit talent, but I think Ortiz is a legit talent too. It's just that Ortiz at this point is an established talent to me. I don't think Ortiz is getting way better. He's a solid boxer and a very good wrestler, very capable wrestler, and that's exactly the kind of test that Scoggins has to pass right now. He has to show that his counter wrestling is good enough and that his striking defense is good enough that he can work from the outside and at range and keep that fight at a distance, or if he can't, that he can actively compete with somebody who is every bit as good, if not better, a wrestler than he is. And so I still think Scoggins is going to win it just because he has a more diverse style. And I think he has the ability to freeze Ortiz a bit on the feet and then sort of change it up and make Ortiz's shots predictable, and then be able to shoot his own to keep Ortiz off balance a little. So, but it'll take a very mature game plan out of Scoggins. So it'll be a good test right now to see if he's actually like already in the top 10 or if he's just kind of floating around and needs a couple of years to develop. Which, I mean, he's really young, so.
Well, so is Ortiz, though. He's only 25 years old. He works. He's with Duke Rufus and the Rufus Sports Camp. So
it's true.
I think that you're making a mistake there to say he's a developed talent, because at that age,
yeah,
in a camp like that, he gets to spar with the Pettis brothers. I mean, that's.
I guess I get a little thrown off because it's been a couple of years since he fought Ian McCall and Tachi Palace. So for me, it's kind of like I know what I've seen out of Ortiz, and what I've seen out of him lately has been pretty consistent. But it's true, he could still in 2 years, 3 years, add a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, that fight was, 2010, 2011?
Yeah, it's 2011.
So he was very, very young at that point.
Nate, you bring up a good point in there where you're talking about Ortiz and where he trains, because he trains, like you said, trains with Rufus Sport. And I mean, if you're fighting a guy in Scoggins who has a kind of tricky, funky stand-up style, then there's not a lot of coaches that are better to help you out with that than Duke Rufus. I mean, he's
And do you know anything about the details of Scoggins' style? What school of traditional martial arts karate bullshit?
He's a karate black belt with a regional kickboxing record.
But which kind of karate?
Oh, I'm not sure.
That's why I was asking Fraser, the striking expert, saying. Not you.
Yeah, it's a field of karate. I can't remember which run right off the top of my head. God damn it.
Let me see. I'll.
Do some internet research and pretend you know what you're talking about.
I've actually talked to his dad about it just a little bit.
Huh.
So briefly.
Cool,
nice.
But anyway, if, like Fraser was saying, if anybody's going to be able to decode some funky ass weird school of karate, Duke Rufus has probably seen it in a kickboxing match at some point in his career, or in a karate match or taekwondo match.
It's Kempo.
Kempo. So that's the Chuck Liddell style. That's fairly straightforward. It's not quite as aggressive as Kyokushin, I wouldn't say, but it's not like Shotokan or something that's effectively taekwondo.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Is that fair, Fraser?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm asking you.
I think that's fair. I think it's more.
Keep talking, Fraser.
I think that's fair. I think it's more along the lines of what you kind of traditionally think of as karate. I think your description's apt.
So.
He reminds me a lot, and nothing to do with what his karate background specifically is, but he reminds me a lot of Stephen Thompson, just in general for his stand-up.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, a lot of side stance and stuff. So it'll be very interesting to see what Ortiz can do with that. The odds makers like Justin Scoggins, they're on the hype bandwagon as well. -300 up to -350. Ortiz
is really good odds on Ortiz.
Yeah, and Ortiz is +235 up to +265. So if you listen to us, even though everybody's picking Scoggins, Ortiz is a live underdog here. And if you are a practitioner of the venal sin of gambling, might want to drop a dime, or hell, the whole life savings, put it on this fight.
Right.
That's not. I'm not qualified to give gambling advice. Okay, this is not gambling advice. Do you ever read investment advice or any of that stuff? You ever notice every investment blog is like got a thing this long? This is not investment advice. This is merely like speculation on the possible trends, blah, 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 blah. So that like when they tell you to go spend your life savings on some bullshit penny stock, then they're not liable. Anyway, that's how you take your gambling advice from Kid Nate, as in don't take it.
Or for me, for that matter. God no.
So we talked about, Fraser talked about the Eddie Gordon-Diego Lima, a middleweight fight, Ultimate Fighter finale. Zane, do you have anything to add on that one?
Well, you skipped one.
I skipped one. What one? Oh, Derek Lewis, heavyweights. Derek Lewis versus Guto Inocente. My bad. This is a non-Ultimate Fighter fight. I can't even look at Wikipedia. This is how much I'm funning it in here. So, what are your thoughts on the heavyweight slugfest?
I gotta go with Derek Lewis here, even though I think Guto Innocent is probably a better fighter, purely in terms of skill. He's got a kickboxing background where he's done pretty well. I mean, he's not like a it's not the kind of kickboxing background that, like, oh, he's not Tyrone Spong coming in where you're like, oh my God, a kickboxer. But he's kickboxed and he's done it successfully. He's got more technical background than Lewis, certainly. But he's coming off a really long layoff and multiple injuries, and I can't trust that he's not going to be rusty. And Lewis has a ton of power in his hands, and when you're talking about heavyweight, it's hard not to pick the guy with power.
Yeah, he's Derek Lewis, the Black Beast out of the Silverback Fight Club. I love those nicknames, and he is nothing but 10 fights, 9 KO wins, 2 losses, both by decision. So this looks like a classic a skill versus power fight. And Philo fought last for Strikeforce. That's how long he's been out. 2-year layoff. Fraser, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, well, let me throw something out there about Innocente. As Zane said, he has that kickboxing experience. He did his kickboxing in the Brazilian scene, which it's an interesting scene. The Brazil in terms of their kickboxing is definitely not at the same level that they are in their MMA. There's been some good Brazilian kickboxers over the years, guys like Glauber Tosa and Everton Teixeira, and they've had some here and there. But it's relatively recent that the Brazilian kickboxing scene has started to kind of make any sort of waves, in the international world of things. Guys down who fight in the kickboxing world in Brazil, to a large degree, are very heavily influenced by that kind of box Brazilian Muay Thai style. The Vanderlei big hooks and kind of going at it. It's Muay Thai, but it's not by any means your kind of traditional Thai Muay Thai. It's a different kind of style. Muay Thai purists our colleague Kyle will scold me for even having called it Muay Thai at all in the first place. He's very angry if he's listening to this right now.
That's our Kyle McLaughlin. Bloody elbow that he's talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So so he does have that experience. I think that does make him a better technical striker here, but it's not the same thing as having a successful kickboxing record in Europe. It's just not. Still a good technical striker, agreed. When it's in a stand-up battle, when it's the technique versus the kind of raw power, I tend to lean towards the technique. But when you add in all of that time off, I'm with Zane that the power takes edge in this one.
Yeah, and I already blanked on the dude's name. He's got 1 win in the UFC, and I went to look and see where it was on the card. Yeah, Derek Lewis. He beat Jack May, creamed him at the end of the first round. As I
he also beat Jared Russell, who's had success just last week, right?
That's his claim to fame is beating. That's a big one.
It should be noted that May was winning that fight until he injured a knee and kind of freaked out and slid off Lewis's back, and Lewis just pounded him through the canvas.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, I will say this too for Innocent. He trains out of Black Zillions, which are getting much better, honestly, as a camp producing talent, and especially training under Henry Hooft out there. It could be that he could come in with a much more studied style, something that's much more prepared to take on Lewis. It's so hard to know after that much time off what a guy's coming in with.
So it's a bit of a crapshoot. Is everybody picking Lewis here?
Yeah.
No, everybody's picking Lewis.
Yep.
I swear I haven't touched illegal substances in years, and here we are. It's like I'm in college again and stoned out of my mind. In my defense, heavily jet lagged. All right, so how long I can ride that since I've been back since Sunday, I don't know. But Derek Lewis is the favorite, anywhere from -185 to -210. Guto Innocente is the underdog, +150 up to +167, and that brings us to the long-awaited Zane Simon follow-up to Fraser Cuffine's. Now I can't even get your names right. Middleweight Ultimate Fighter finale between Diego Lima and Eddie Gordon. Broadcaster of the year right here, man. This is the greatest performance of my career.
You and Eugene are made for each other. He's gunning for fight MMA Journalist of the Year, and you're right on board with the Broadcaster of the Year.
Yes, indeed. All right, so what's your pick?
Don't immolate yourself. Just
I'm not even going to make an empty threat stimulate myself. That's the difference. Lima or Gordon? Who are you picking?
I came into this really prepared to pick Lima when I was doing my research, which I had to do at the last minute because I didn't watch all of TUF. I didn't subject myself like Fraser did on behalf of the greater good. And then I watched some footage, and I can't get past the feeling that Gordon's going to take this. Lima's the better athlete. He's probably the better raw talent. But Gordon, the big thing is that Lima really takes advantage of mistakes. That's really what he's good at, is latching on to small mistakes and ending a fight. But Gordon doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's simple. His game is simple. It's really just boxing and plotting footwork. But I feel like Lima's winning fights. This fight feels a lot to me like Diego Lima's fight against who was it? It was on the regional scene. Ricky Rainey, the sniper, Ricky Rainey, and Rainey almost took that fight. It was a split decision, and a lot of people, I think, thought Rainey even might have won it. And Lima he's really bad about getting backed up into the cage, about getting kind of cornered and getting shut down. And right now, a Sarah Longo trained fighter who's mentally stable and doesn't maybe have gas tank problems, I got to take Gordon. I think that Lima I don't trust him to win this fight, and I don't trust him to take the fight to Gordon and try to get it into any area that he can win it. I mean, I think he has the talent to, but I don't see it.
And so, Fraser, we've got a split panel. Is that correct? Fraser picked Lima, and Zane picked Gordon.
I did pick Lima, but I have to say I don't completely disagree with what Zane's saying here. I think Gordon absolutely can win this. I stick with my Lima pick, but Zane's argument is solid. I'll say I think Lima to win this, he has to finish it. If it goes to the books, it's going to be, if he doesn't get it done, it's going to be that Eddie Gordon controlled it more and takes the decision.
All right, and so that's Eddie Gordon is the underdog. Lima is the favorite at -159 up to -180. Eddie Gordon, underdog, +125 to +147. We should mention that Lima trains out of the American top team in Atlanta, one of the more story camps in MMA, but as a branch office, as it were. Mm-hmm. And now we've got the Corey Anderson, Matt Van Buren Ultimate Fighter finale, and Fraser was pretty high on Corey Anderson. What do you think, Zane?
Yeah, I think Anderson's the one real talent to. Anderson is this season's Holdsworth, Chris Holdsworth. Not necessarily Gastelum, but Holdsworth. The guy, and this is what they're getting now out of TUF. I mean, this is what they got out of TUF Brazil too. In who was their heavyweight winner? I don't remember.
This is what the schedule has done to us. We're gonna blame
Alexander Carlos Jr. Yeah. This is their, Alexander Carlos Jr. This is what they're getting now for TUF, and these are the TUF winners now. Are guys with 3 or 4 pro fights. I mean, even Warley Alves was, I think, like 6 pro fights. They're getting top talent really early in their career, and they're letting these guys run through a tough season. And Corey Anderson is that guy for this season. and he's raw, but he's got wrestling, he's got control, and Van Buren is way too willing to get sucked into a sloppy grappling and takedown game, and I think he's just going to get controlled in a boring fight for 3 rounds. And I mean, Anderson's even shown some decent ground and pound, so Van Buren could even just get pounded out and TKO'd at some point. But it'll be a sad thing for the UFC if Van Buren wins this, because I do not see a lot of upside in putting any kind of award or trying to promote him in any way down the line.
Ouch. And that is the odds makers have Corey Anderson favored as well, minus 190 up to minus 240. Matt Van Buren all the way from plus 150 to plus 195. And this is how bad this episode is. I promised at the beginning, because once I saw the technical difficulties Fraser was having in his debut show, which is, welcome to the club, kid. We have been through some tech difficulties on this show. All of us have. I told us this was the worst season of Ultimate Fighter, and it was guaranteed to be the worst ever episode of MMA Vivisection. And it's like completely broadcasting malpractice to not have even mentioned the only fight that anybody cares about on this card, BJ Penn versus Frankie Edgar, which is one legend against a near legend, both former UFC lightweight champions. They've had 2 fights. Frankie Edgar's won both of them. Now they're fighting at featherweight. Storied rivalry. BJ Penn might be on his last gasp. Dana White's saying if he loses, he's going to suggest to BJ that he retire. And BJ's response was, hey, man, if I win, I'm going to retire too. You're going to go out on top. So that's, this is strictly for the legacy. BJ Penn, one of the most brilliant and frustrating fighters in the history of MMA, possibly the most raw athletic talent we've ever seen in the UFC. When he first came in, just a freakish gifted athlete. The kid, I can't remember how long, he trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a very short time before becoming a black belt, and then was one of the first North American world champions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then comes in the UFC with amazing knockout power, lethal fists, lethal knees, and then loses an epic fight to Jens Pulver, where he developed his reputation as a front runner and somebody who folds when the chips get rough. Goes on a long odyssey outside the UFC, comes back, beats Jens Pulver after coaching the Ultimate Fighter. He fought Lyoto Machida at light heavyweight at one point. This is how all over the place. He demolished Takanori Gomi right before Gomi went on his run as the clear best lightweight in the world. Then Penn returns to the UFC, returns to lightweight, claims the vacant UFC lightweight title that was abandoned by Sean Shirk because of drug testing issues. I can't remember if Shirk was on steroids. I believe he was claiming he was on supplements, but I think it was steroids he tested positive for. Reels off a really hot run as the lightweight champion, culminated in the destruction of Diego Sanchez. That was a thing of beauty. And then at UFC 112, little Frankie Edgar, who was not expected to beat BJ Penn, beat him in a decision I disagreed with at the time. It wasn't a good fight. A great performance from Edgar. Disappointing performance from Penn. I still thought Penn won that fight. Second fight, Penn showed some flashes of strategy, but had mistrained or something, didn't physically have the set, and Edgar was more confident in himself and beat him in a second decision at UFC 118, the same fight night. Randy Couture and James Toney fought a headline. So, who wants to talk about this fight first? Then I'll jump up at once. Go, Fraser. You can't duck it.
All right, I'm going. I'll talk about it.
All right.
I'm ready. I'm good.
Talk. See, you've got a lagging, but talk.
I mean, I'm good. I clearly, the easy pick is Edgar. He beat him twice. It's Frankie Edgar. He's won. But it's because BJ Penn is, he's coming back after, a pretty significant layoff where it seemed like he was retired. And the interesting thing, I think, to me, the most fascinating thing here is that BJ Penn's big struggles have always been when he is not physically in good shape for a fight. He's down at 145 for this, which I'm impressed that he is making. And all through TUF, he looked good. He looked like he was sort of in a good physical shape. So if he's motivated, jeez, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is like this is the thing people have said for 18 years. You understand exactly where I'm going with this. If he's motivated, if he's in shape, blah 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 blah. But it's true.
Is Brandon Vera mounting a comeback too, Fraser?
I know. Shut up. I know. All right. All that said, I'm still picking Frankie Edgar. Because even if he is motivated and all that sort of thing, I just kind of think years have caught up with him too much, and Frankie Edgar is just at this point is just the superior fighter, even against a sort of best he can be at the moment BJ Penn, which is still not the best he can be in all his career BJ Penn.
No,
so
he's
Frankie
35
Edgar,
years old.
I guess probably by decision. I'll go out on a limb and say by controversial split decision.
There you go. And Zayn, your pick?
I would love controversial split decision. I'd love a neck-and-neck fight that's close and fun and really tight. I expect it to be a really competitive first round, and then I would say a fourth round TKO stoppage from Edgar.
Wow.
I think Penn is going to probably slide hard as the fight goes on, and it'll just get into one of those ugly, weird fights that he has gotten into in the past few years with Rory McDonald and Nick Diaz and all that, where he just ends up getting beat up round after round.
None of those guys could stop him. And Nick Diaz, Rory McDonald, and John Fitch nearly killed BJ Penn in the third round fight. And none of those guys could stop him. The only guy that stopped BJ Penn.
But neither of those were. Neither of those were 5-round. None of those were 5-round fights, though. So
that's true. That's the key.
It may not have been long enough for the slide to really fully take effect. And
damn you, Simon, and your conscious memory and ability to recollect factual information, because it's just not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is that I would love to say that his. The problems have to do with fighting bigger guys or not taking it seriously or not being in shape, but it's not. I mean, it maybe no. I just I can't trust that that's true. That's all theoretical.
The problem is father time and a career of not training seriously.
And I mean the thing is too, it's not like Nick Diaz or Rory McDonald ground him down and roughed him up by laying on him or wrestling him or taking him down.
Yeah, but Nick Diaz has an exhausting style if you play into his game, which BJ Penn did. I mean, he worked the body.
But I mean, Diego Sanchez has an exhausting style too,
but Diego Sanchez wasn't landing anything on BJ. He was just leaning on BJ.
I know, but I'm just saying that the reason BJ Penn got handily outstruck in both of those fights. That's the thing. That didn't used to happen to BJ Penn.
No. But these were natural welterweights with considerable height and reach.
But what I'm saying is that they weren't laying on him. They weren't that size wasn't coming into effect.
Well, it does come into effect in reach.
Whoa!
Jimi Hendrix is back.
But anyway, I mean that size. I mean, okay, maybe they hit harder or maybe they have a little more range, but it still was just BJ Penn getting outworked and getting worn down and getting outstruck handily, and I don't see why Frankie Edgar can't do that. He did it in the second fight, and that was Penn supposedly near the height of his ability.
Yep, that's fair enough. Fraser, you're making some kind of hideous feedbacking noise. Are you in a football stadium or listening to AM radio?
I'm doing nothing. I'm doing the same thing I was before. Maybe I'll
Try
just go away.
Do you have? Yeah, go ahead and drop out. And thanks for coming on. And we'll have you back again next time without the technical gremlins. And so everybody, big round of applause for young Fraser Coffin.
Sorry.
That's all right. Thanks for powering through, man. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to be busting his balls over this shit forever. Fraser Coffin, a longtime Bloody Elbow writer, one of our kickboxing and boxing gurus, and the only guy on the staff who still watches The Ultimate Fighter, I do believe. Anyway, so back to your thing about BJ being worn down.
Well, I just don't there's no part of me that, I can't do the BJ Penn looks motivated thing in my head anymore. I can't say that to myself.
It's 2014, man. It's just not,
So, at best, I am really hoping for Fraser's split decision loss idea. That comes out where BJ puts on this great competitive fun fight and we're all just going, oh my god, that was so cool and all that. And that I'm hoping for. But
there's also a live chance that BJ Penn comes out and nails Frankie Edgar and knocks him right out. I mean, he still has. We haven't seen it. There's a chance. There's a chance, my son. These things can still happen. He creamed an elderly Matt Hughes with his
Frankie
last win.
Edgar
But
has
Edgar, the Maynard fight, man, Gray Maynard nearly knocked Frankie Edgar out, and it was just a combination of great reffing and great gutsiness on Edgar's part. But Maynard nearly knocked him out in both of their fights, which are classics that nobody has seen. Like the Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard series are two of the most incredible fights I've ever seen. Incredible performances. I used to bag on Frankie Edgar for being boring and being a point fighter, but those performances against Gray Maynard, I think, are just some of the most legendary comebacks ever. But both times he was hurt, and so Frankie Edgar can be hurt.
no,
And
he can
BJ
be
Penn,
hurt, but I
yeah.
think there's a much, much, much better chance that Frankie Edgar knocks BJ Penn out at this point in their careers than
I
that BJ
didn't
Penn
say
knocks
I didn't
Frankie.
say there wasn't. I just said there
I'm just-
is a chance that I'd say BJ Penn's best chance is an early knockout. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
probably, but I mean, like that just depends on the idea that he still has the speed, that that all the tools are still there. Because I mean, to say, oh, he still has the ability, we don't know that.
No, it's
I mean,
true. It's true. But power is one of the last things you
the la-
lose. He's
the last
probably gonna have
the
lost
last
some
time
hand
BJ
speed, but
Penn fought was 2012.
yeah.
You know,
And he looked old and
yeah, he looked
creaky.
old and worn, and he got beat up for 3 rounds of totally uncompetitive MMA.
Yeah.
It was not competitive for 1 minute.
No,
of
it
that
wasn't.
fight.
It wasn't. And Roy McDonald really botched that with
Yeah.
the dancing in front of him and everything else. Yeah, that's true. That was the end of 2012, so it's been 2.5
So
years.
we're saying
So
over the last year and a half, or 2013 and half of 2014, that he's gotten sharper and still can put it together, and that the drop in weight is going to solve one of these magic problems, and it's
but no, to me, it's like just everything about this fight card and this whole fight weekend and this whole season of Ultimate Fighter shows the limitations of the UFC's strategy, which is flood the market with product, put a ton of shows out there, do this amazingly ambitious international expansion. And I think from a business standpoint, it's quite brilliant because they're on a trapeze. Pay-per-view is a dying business. People are streaming so fast that it's like whack-a-mole trying to shut down people that are illegally streaming your pay-per-views. And the younger generation is all over streaming shit. They're not into paying for stuff. And so the UFC has made this strategic move towards TV rights, doubled their TV money in the U.S. with the deal with Fox, signed a huge deal with Globo in Brazil, signed a huge deal with Televisa in Mexico, has improved their deals somewhat in Europe, threatening to land a Japanese TV deal. There's a method to the madness. However, they have pushed and stomped on the product and diluted it to the point, like last year there were too many fights. Like as a slave to this, I was like, man, I'm sick of this. But fight after fight card after fight card, it would either be a great night of fights, a decent night of fights, sometimes a crappy night of fights, but you never went, who is this guy? What is this? I mean, there would be the occasional sea of, I don't know who these guys are, I don't remember these guys, but there would be generally good fights. This year, there's been just this fall through the floor where you're like, this is in the UFC? What? Again? And it's these long marathon viewing sessions. Ultimate Fighter has always been the lowest pool of talent for whatever reason, even though it's putatively one of the best opportunities in the sport. You get all that cable TV exposure. If I ran the circus, I would put the very best guys on the Ultimate Fighter. If you had a hot prospect, we're going to put you on cable TV for a few months and make you do it.
Not to jump into the middle of your rant,
Yeah.
but
By all means.
I mean, they are doing that with the Ultimate Fighter, though. The Ultimate Fighter, as talent delivery, has gotten notably better in the past couple of years.
They have had a couple of good seasons, and Kevin Gastelum was a testament. But to me, what a bunch of long, boring lay and pray fights like they had this season says is you've got a lot of very raw fighters who may be talented.
That comes down to trying to build two divisions that have almost no talent on the market.
Yeah, and
That's the problem.
Yeah, and they're doing that through the Ultimate Fighter because they're desperate for talent in those divisions because at this point they're desperate for warm bodies that'll put gloves on and mouthpieces in. And
Yeah, I mean,
so
light heavyweight's just not getting better, and it's their marquee division.
it used to
Jones,
be, yeah.
yeah, and so they're seeing that finally. I mean, I've been saying this for like a year and a half now, and now finally they're running seasons of TUF that are all like light heavyweight, middleweight, heavyweight, trying to push guys into there. And it's just this is one of the bad outcomes of it was this season of TUF. But I mean, otherwise, like Warley Alves is a legit talent, and Chris Holdsworth is a legit talent. Kelvin Gastelum is a legit talent. They're, even TJ Dillashaw, they have a TUF
Yeah.
winner won a title. I
Yep,
mean,
it's the
my God,
bantamweight title, but it's still a title. That is a very fair point. But nevertheless, I stand by my argument that this season was undone by the watering down of the fight quality because they're trying to lard up find talent in divisions, and like you said, they're resorting to going for very green, very raw, athletically talented guys. They're not getting guys that are ready for the UFC. They're getting guys that are going to need a lot of development to be what we used to consider UFC ready. And now, and the depth on the card, the only reason Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn are on this instead of the pay-per-view, which they would add a lot to the pay-per-view. People would pay money to see BJ Penn one more time. But if they didn't have that fight on this card, why would Fox even want this card? I mean, it's got the Ultimate Fighter guys, and they've got nothing. I mean, Dustin Ortiz and Justin Scoggins is the only other fight where I'm going, now this is a real UFC fight, and these guys are flyweights. And we just saw a very painful demonstration at UFC 174. People are not into paying for flyweights, or they're not capable. They're very rarely capable of headlining cards. We had some good luck with Mighty Mouse headlining Fox cards, so maybe but Scoggins and Dustin Ortiz are both in the category of relatively exciting new prospects. They're not established names, so they just don't have. They're playing so many games all over, so many cards. They just don't have the roster depth. They're so desperate for headliners. They've got BJ Penn fighting likely the last fight of his career on Fox Sports 1, which I just think, what a drag. You've got people paying $55 to see Marcus Brimage and Doan when BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar are fighting the next night. It's classic hubris. And anyway, people have been complaining I'm too negative about the product, but fuck it, man. I'm going to be honest. That's my deal. Like, this show is by fans, for fans, and it's been really hard to be a UFC fan this year. And so, any final thoughts?
Well, it's hard to follow all that. I mean, have a good weekend. No, I don't know. I mean, this massive screed that.
See, you never could follow that would be Eugene Robinson or Dallas Winston. Both of them would have something there. But you're coming. You got the fight knowledge.
Yeah, I feel like I would say that even for me, it's been hard to care about. Like, I can't get myself to care about Tuarshan versus Issa. Like, there's no level at which I think, and it might be a fun fight. It could be a perfectly serviceable, fun fight, but it's not relevant at all.
No.
There's nothing to build there. There's nothing to see there. There's nothing I'm interested in watching about that. Or Kevin Lee versus Jesse Ronson. I mean, like I say, I right now I feel like, and that Kevin Lee's a guy who's got a lot of natural talent, but it needs a whole style overhaul. And Ronson, I'm just not excited about at all. So you've got these fights coming on that, like, I just can't. Even I'm having trouble, like, finding the silver lining.
Yeah, and you're a guy who does this, semi-professional. It's not the only thing you do, but this is what you're doing. You're doing it all the time, and you're obsessively researching new fights. Your very favorite thing to do is talk about new guys and new prospects, and you're not even up for this card. I mean, it's just like, it is what it is, people. If that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, but here we are, 2014, the state of mixed martial arts, and I'll be watching it on Sunday. So.
I'll be watching it. I'm not missing it, and there are some. I'm interested to see how Drysdale does. I'm interested to see how Dufresne does. I'm interested to see Adriano Martins get a dominant win. I'm interested to see Scoggins and Ortiz. That'll be
Scoggins
good.
and Ortiz, I'm actually hyped for. That
Yeah,
is a
that's a
very
good
interesting
fight.
fight to me.
And I'm interested to see, I'm interested to see if Innocente can come out and look like he's actually got some real technical striking coming out of the Black Zillions. And that's all stuff. I'll be watching it. There's nothing
Yeah.
I want to. I'm not passing it over. Not nearly quite the same way that I was pre the event for the New Zealand card, and that card ended up being fun by everyone's account. I couldn't.
I did that one. I got to watch. I missed it live, but I got to watch
Yeah.
it on Fight Pass a few later in the day because I was on vacation. I was not going to get up in the middle of the night to watch that, but it was a fun card. It had one great fight. The Hioki Oliveira fight was just magic, and the crowd was into James DeHuna and everything, but we are well afield and it's late, so there's no reason to keep talking about this crap. So anyway, but thanks again for doing this, Zane. The worst ever episode of MMA Vivisection, and it's not anybody's fault except broadband connections. Yes, we can blame Fraser. Normally, but we got to blame Kid Nate because
That's true. It's your fault for bringing him on, and
it's always blame Kid Nate. That's
for the trial by fire that is. You're hosting.
Indeed, and you at this point you're nearly forged in that fire. Anyway, so subscribe to the MMANation.com on YouTube, and you won't miss any of this kind of magic. Give us a like on the video because it's a pure pity like, really, at this point. And follow at DZane Simon on Twitter. And now I got to look up Fraser Kofi, and the least I can do is give out his Twitter handle correctly. and I got to Google it because this is a guy who's worked for me for like 5 years. I still can't spell his last name. It's
he's worked for you for 5 years, and you started the show by asking how you pronounce his last name.
I've never
that was
talked
beautiful.
to him. I mean, that's and I still don't know. He never did say because
F Caffeine.
Caffeine. So it's F Caffeine at F Caffeine, and Caffeine is COFFEEN, and he knows his stuff about boxing, knows his stuff about kickboxing, knows his MMA, and he watches The Ultimate Fighter, one of my favorite Bloody Elbow riders. So dig it, and at DZane Simon, at the Kid Nate, read us on BloodyElbow.com, and mercifully this show is drawing to a conclusion. I'm going to try to get some sleep. Adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you this weekend with the 6th round. Are we doing the 6th round? Are you going to be on the 6th round for me on 175?
Very likely. I mean, we can't be canceled because we run the show. So
Zane will be joining us.
I'll be up for the 6th round, I think.
For both installments of the 6th round?
Tentatively, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna even bother with the 6th round for Penn Edgar, but we'll see. If there's BJ Penn, so it's gonna be of historical significance either way.
It'll be there might be something to talk about, but
All right. Well, the man said he told me I was born down. When I asked him to do some ridiculous thing like, "Can you do a show at midnight tonight?" He's like, "I'm born down." Zane Simon, born down. No longer that fucking idiot. He's got a new nickname, Born Down. All right.
There you go. I'll rep Mark Hunt any day of the week.
All right, man. Adios, MMA aficionados. Hasta.